be here on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you for welcoming me here and for the opportunity to come and talk with you. And I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I agree with Elisa, that's not just something that you say, it's something that has a lot of meaning to me and to many Australians to recognise the first Australians when we make these sorts of presentations. So it's interesting that Elisa talked about, I suppose, the history of where advocacy and rights comes from. And in one of the speeches that I give as Australia's Disability Discrimination Commissioner, I talk about, I reference back to the American Civil Rights Movement. And one of the catalysts of that civil rights movement was a woman who refused to sit at the back of the bus. And I'm embarrassed that it must be Sunday morning and her name has just gone out of my... Rosa Parks, thank you. Of course it's Rosa Parks, I don't know how I can forget that. In that stage in the US, people with different coloured skins were, for some reason that I've never been able to get my head around, made to sit at the back of the bus and drink from a different fountain and use different bathrooms, etc., etc. And the civil rights movement has progressed those sorts of things to a large extent in the US. I'm sure Elisa would tell us that they haven't achieved all of the end goals yet, but you know, there's been significant progress. But for people with a disability, many of us, literally and figuratively, can't get on that bus. And so my job, I've been a human rights lawyer for a long time, and I've been an advocate, and I think I'm probably an activist as well. If being an activist means coming from the position that you have an expectation that you or your kids should get the same treatment or a fair go as just the same way as other kids, then I'm definitely an activist. I've been in the disability movement in Australia for a long time, as well as a human rights lawyer, and I suppose 8.5 years ago, the government, a coalition government, in fact the Attorney General Philip Roke, appointed me as the Human Rights Commissioner and the Disability Discrimination Commissioner. And the terms for that role are 5-year terms, but my term was extended, and it actually ends on the 5th of July this year, or 4th of July this year. Unfortunately, we discovered in the budget last week that when my term ends, another Disability Discrimination Commissioner won't be appointed. In other words, the position won't be filled. And I just, for the sort of saving that will be made for that position, it's about $400,000 a year when you, and please don't think I get paid $400,000 a year, I don't, but you know, when you add the various costs of administrative support and stuff like that, and travel costs and all those sorts of things. For that saving, to remove the position of Disability Discrimination Commissioner when in Australia, as you all know, we still have so far to go in terms of advancing the rights of people with disability, I just find a terrible decision, and I fail to understand what the rationale for that decision was. I believe it's a decision we can change, and I'm certainly working to change it. And the way that we can change it is that we can keep talking about it and make sure that it continues to be talked about publicly. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been talking to lots of media this week about the decision and what a problem that will be for the disability sector. I have a blog which is my blog is at graemeinnes.com. And you can just Google Graeme Innes, GraemeInnes. And I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and I keep writing about it. I've written an opinion piece for the Fairfax papers tomorrow, and I'll keep talking about it. And I think that's what all of us in the disability sector need to do, and I'll keep talking about it after I finish my term as Commissioner, until that decision is reversed. And the other thing that I think we can all do as individuals, because lots of people say to me, oh, you know, I won't be able to have much impact on turning that around, but I think that's not right. I think that individuals can have an impact, and people like Rosa Parks certainly had an impact when she took the action that she did. And I think it's really important for us to talk to our federal politicians about this, particularly if but not necessarily if our politicians are members of the government, and to write to the Attorney General about it. And my strategy on that is that letters are actually best. It seems odd, but politicians give more weight to letters than they give to emails and Facebook posts and Twitter posts. So, you know, we can go back to that old 20th century method of communicating. But an even stronger thing to do is to go and meet with your local politician, sit down with them for 10 or 15 minutes and say, I'm concerned about this decision and this is why I'm concerned. And I think if we can get the numbers around Australia doing that, we can actually reverse this decision. What the government have said is that they'll ask one of the other commissioners to be the Disability Discrimination Commissioner. Now, I work with those other commissioners and they're all great people and they're fantastic advocates in their own field. None of them has a disability, and none of them have experience in the disability sector. And so what I'm saying to people is not just we need a Disability Discrimination Commissioner, but we need a Disability Discrimination Commissioner who has lived experience of disability and who has knowledge and awareness of the disability sector. And I could give you a list of a dozen people right now, off the top of my head, who could very adequately perform that role, Australians with disabilities from around the country. So I just thought I'd start off with that because I know that it's a bit of a current topic, and you know, I actually tweeted on Twitter while I was on the way up here today, you know, that I'm off to the Sunshine Coast to talk to a bunch of parents of kids with disabilities about discrimination issues, and you know, I got a few tweets back sort of saying, well, what's going to happen after the 4th of July? Who's going to do that? At the moment, no one is. So that's the decision that we need to change.